This is the 1980 Triumph TR7. It's the 30th Anniversary Edition, which is some options that are on it. So we'll go through. This is a California spec car, so it has fuel injection. Does not have air conditioning, never did. So this car, original owners bought it, drove it for several years. They blew the head gasket, and it was out of warranty, and they parked it and for a couple of decades, and I think probably in a barn or something because it's not sun damaged. And then somewhere in the early 2000s, a young college guy bought it. He pulled the motor out, sent it out, had it professionally rebuilt, put it back in. He couldn't get it to run, and then he gave up. So I bought it as a stalled project. So the problem was that his buddy had gone in and messed around with the electrics, and in the process, the big connector for the computer relay pulled one of the wires out of the middle. So there's like 14 wires, and it's in the middle of that. It's hard to see. And the one wire he pulled out was the main power wire for the computer. So the computer wouldn't turn on, means the fuel injection didn't turn on. The only thing that worked was the cold start injector, which runs for 5 seconds regardless of what the computer's doing. So it would start, run for 5 seconds, and shut down. So I bought it. I went through the electronic fuel injection. There's new injectors, replaced all these flex pipes. There's new sensors. There's a new throttle position sensor. There's an air mass sensor that's been rebuilt. I think the only thing it didn't replace was the thermo time switch, which works. It just wasn't available. And of course, it's had new hoses. The guy before me did the electric fan conversion. I converted it to a Delco Remy alternator. So that's an alternator off of an early 80s GM products, like an 83 Camaro. It's got a battery's only about a month old. We painted it. This all happened about 5 years ago. Put a new catalytic converter in. The guy before me had put a new clutch in it. I rebuilt the transmission. It's a 5-speed. I also replaced the bearings in the rear axle. And we rebuilt all the brakes. It's got a new master cylinder here. We put a brake booster on it, a new proportioning valve, rebuilt the calipers, new pads, new rotors, new rear cylinders, new brake shoes. I think the brake drums were okay, so we reused those. Has Delco Remy electronic ignition, so you can actually get parts from these because they fit Chevrolets. And this is the coil pack here. It has a Delco Remy distributor in it too, I believe. It's got a new fuel pressure valve. All these hoses, the fuel hoses, have been replaced with modern ethanol spec fuel injection hoses. There's you can see it way down there. There's an adjustable thermostat for the fan. We also put an overflow tank in. The original glass, original wipers. Put new seat covers on and rebuilt this seat. That seat, the foams were good, so we left them in place with new cover. It's got new door pads. The piece between the seat was an NOS piece we found and replaced that. The luggage rack was part of the 30th anniversary equipment. The steering wheel was part of the anniversary equipment. Added an electric antenna, so you can see it's going down. There's the 30th anniversary tag on the dashboard on the glove box. Upgraded the speakers. There's a Blaupunk stereo with a USB port on it. TR8 wheels, mud flaps, nice exhaust tip. Truck's pretty clean. It's all original paint in here. Because we'll get all this junk out of here before we move it on. Take my tools back out. That's a cover for the roof. It's got a new roof on it too. I put a Sunfast roof on, but I haven't put the little snaps on there. It's not that hard to do, I just never got around to it. So it won't install right now, or at least not properly. Wooden shift knob. I think that's a new shift boot, or at least one out of it. May come out of the parts car. And it comes with these mats that came from Rimmer Brothers in England. They're actually pretty expensive. I think they're about $50. The overlay mats. Carpets underneath are original carpets, but they're pretty good shape. They're a little thin underneath the heels, and there's a little hole in that one that's been fixed. And that's about it. It smogged about a month ago. Came up super clean. It hits at about 10% of the allowable amounts for this year cars from California. So for example, if it was allowed 10% of something in parts per million, 10 parts per million, say, it comes in at 1. So it's really clean. And we have a front license plate for it somewhere. We just never bothered to put it on. So with it, we built the slave cylinder for the clutch slave cylinder, the clutch master cylinder. Did a lot of work to it over the years, and I finished it up about 4 years ago, and the wife drove it every day to work, 50 miles a day, and she put about 19,000 miles on it. Rain and shine. This is her commute car. At the time, we didn't even own anything newer than this. This is a 1980. The only thing newer than that is my bike, and I don't let her drive that. But she's retired. I'm retired now. So in the last 2 years, probably put 500 miles on it, and I'm running out of room. Bought a couple of other cars, so it's time to move it on. It's registered through April of 22. I've just got the stickers the other day. I just haven't put them on yet. So it's got a full year registration on it. It's a nice car. It's a little more power than the carbureted cars. It's got the 389 ratio rear end, so it's actually pretty peppy. I've got another one in 81, but it's got the 305 rear end, and it's really nice on the freeway. But you know, around town, this thing's a lot peppier with that gear ratio. And of course, you can do highway speeds all day long in it. And I think 3,500 RPMs is 75 or so miles an hour. So I mean, you can do 80 or 90 on the freeway with it, no problems. Doesn't run hot. Like I say, we use it in all weather. Doesn't really use any oil. I have had a little bit of a seep around the valve cover gasket, so when it sits, it gets onto the manifold here, and if you let it, because I mean, it sits for 5 or 6 weeks at a time for us. You smell that burn off a little bit, and of course it can get down on the catalytic converter is right there, so a little bit of oil can get on that too, but not a big deal. I mean, I've got 2,000 miles on this oil change, and if not put any in, and there's the dipstick, it's still full. This is still there. This is the plenum. These things tend to go wandering, and blows hot air in the car all the time. You ain't got one, so good thing to have. Oh, and we put Arp Head Bolts in. These are them, and they torque at 85 pounds. The original guy rebuilt it, put the original head bolts back in, and you couldn't keep them torqued. They were stretching. They were just too old. So spent the money for ARPs. Never had any problems since. So that's it. It's a good little car. I'm really happy with it. It was a lot of fun to fix. The fuel injection is really nice. The wife loves that because she doesn't get along with chokes, because all the other cars are manual chokes pretty much. So she loved the fuel injection, and so she wasn't bothering me, and I loved that. Anyway, and we'll pick it up and let you see underneath as well. As you can see, this is a California car. There is no rust. It's had tie rod ends, ball joints, struts. Motor was rebuilt. Ball joints, struts. These rubbers are starting to go, but you can get replacement rubbers. Put needle bearings in the struts too instead of just the bushings to make it easier to turn. Nice solid floors. Had the exhaust replaced. It's a brand new, well, when we did it, a brand new catalytic converter. Got about 20,000 miles on it now. No rust. All new bushings in the back end. New bearings in the back end. Gas shocks. Gas shocks in the struts too. We did all the brakes. Back. New bushings up top for the stops. Sway bar. The newer fuel pump. It's fuel injected. This is a 5-speed transmission. Had a new clutch in. I'm going to put the motor in. Welded. These are the shields for the catalytic converter stuff. They were cracked, so we welded them up to fix them. It's an oil filter conversion. It used to be a canister type, and this is just a standard Napa Auto Parts 1515 filter. It's very common, same as a Fram PH36. You buy them at any parts store. All new bushings in the front end, except for these ones. These are still rubber. They're in good shape and they transfer a lot of load, so just to make the ride a little better. Electric fan conversion. And it's still wearing its chin spoiler, and it has fog lights. The fog lights were part of the 30th anniversary package. Tires are about half worn. They're about 5 years old. So we've got a few good miles on them. They're actually pretty nice tires. They're AA traction rated. These are Achilles 185/70/13. These are the Platinums. And let's see if the rating's on here. They're directional. Really happy with them. I got them on several of the cars now. They're really good. Nice traction. A nice looking tire. They're fairly beefy. These are TR8 wheels. This is not just dirt. This is from brake dust. It sort of makes its mark on the surface. You have to sort of polish it out to really get it. I already just washed this car. That didn't wash out. So you see no holes in the rocker panels. No rust in the arches. And these little drain things are still in place. Nice clean arches. Rebuilt the front calipers. New rotors, new pads, new master brake cylinder, new rear brake cylinders. I think we used the old drums because they were still good. And of course, new brake shoes on the rear. I'll bring it down. I'm going to start it up so you can see how easy it starts. It has been run today, I'll give you that, but it's been shut off for about an hour right now. See, no smoke back here. Just a tiny bit of lifter noise, but it's a solid lifter engine, overhead camshaft, so they're never dead quiet. There's the motor up a little bit so you can see that it's not smoking. We also replaced most of the rubber in the car. Got new window seals, new window corners. I think we replaced these. I don't know. Did a lot of work. There's a new window winder on this side because this is the one that wears out. It's the bit that lifts the window, the regulator. put new seals in here. Those are all new. So I mean, you know, letting my wife drive it all the time. She's put 20,000 miles on it. Wanted it to be a nice, reliable car, and if it wasn't, I'd heard the end of it. So she loves this car, but we just got too many. I mean, you can see from the still pictures, I'm having to park stuff out on the lawn now. Yeah, I'll show you. Get, you know, lots of Triumphs. That's a Rover. Here's 3 more here. There's 2 more in the tent. There's 2 more in the garage. So, you know, now the economy's picked up a bit again. Time to sell a few. So, whoever buys this would be really happy. You wouldn't be afraid to jump in it and drive it anywhere you want. It just, you know, runs nice, drives nice. Really light steering, even though it's manual. Great car.